So tell me a story, if you can, about the impact that you saw. You mentioned actually impact in a mergers and acquisitions environment. What are some of the things that you've seen that you've been a part of now that you would have said, I never would have seen that impact before if I wasn't on kind of the inside track?
So I think one of a good example of that was when I first started my last position, like literally 3 days before I think they closed on this acquisition. And it was about a week or two before the CEO calls me and she goes, "Hey, John, I need you on this phone call. I want to see what the risk profile is here, the integration after the acquisition closed." And she had started after the acquisition too. So she was put in place by the private equity company. So she didn't have a lot of background into what the negotiations behind it and who the players were. She's like, "I want to know what the risk is here and like where we're at with it. And I want your perspective." I was like, "Okay, no problem." I get on this phone call. It was a disaster. It was an asset purchase and they didn't set it up as an asset purchase. They were operating like as a stock purchase. So it meaning that they hadn't terminated and hired all their employees into a new entity. They were using the old entity. They were using the old payroll, all the things they hadn't integrated, anything hadn't moved, all the things you're supposed to do when you have an asset purchase. The original owner is the founder. He was upset, obviously. Our people on our side were frustrated too because they didn't quite understand what was going on either, cause it hadn't really been communicated well. And one of the things I noticed really quickly was I was like, where's HR? Where was the communication? Like the total lack and breakdown of communication. I think HR plays a vital role in these situations in that communication process, primarily between the new entity and us and saying, "Hey, here's what we're going to do to support you," because it's scary when you get acquired by a much, much, much larger company and you're an employee of this other company, especially the employees. Most of these acquisitions are because either they're trying to get into a market, they're trying to acquire customers. In order to protect that and do that, you've got to make sure those employees, especially the ones that control those accounts, you got to make sure that they're communicated with appropriately, that they feel like they've been heard, they feel like they're supported, they feel like they're not going to get bobbled up in this massive other organization. So one of the things I said immediately, I was like, whatever this meeting is, we've got to make sure that we're communicating appropriately. People are taking responsibility for their own action items until I was able to try to get our HR involved. We ended up changing this right before the riff happened actually in that company. So we ended up moving things around, but I was like, we got to send somebody out there like this has to happen now. We got to start communicating. We got to start understanding. They're asking questions. What's going to happen to my 401k? What's happening to benefits they have because there are people and their issues that these people are worried about, their vacation days and holidays. These are all different. They're the company that we acquired with an organ. So the laws are different. The sick days are different. So all their vacation days going to carry over. Some of these guys have had like 150 vacation days. And then they're like, oh God. And they were working on government projects and stuff too. So the way that they had their 401ks and some of them had a lot of money in the 401k, how's that going to work? And they were getting frustrated. It wasn't that nothing was being taken care of. Everything in the background that was trying to happen was they were merging everything together, trying to work on that, but they just weren't communicating it really well to these employees. And it was causing all sorts of unnecessary panic. And that was really where I was like, okay, HR needs to step in here and they need to be the voice and communicate. We need to get some senior people out there to be able to talk to the employees directly, to be able to articulate what's happening, what they can expect in the next 30 days, 60 days, and then go from there. And that's really where, especially in a situation where HR can really make the difference of success and failure in that case, even after that, that's part of the reason when we did the riff. What we did was because it didn't work out well. Even when we got out there, it still was a little bit unorganized and not handled really well. So it was a learning experience for me. I went out there directly and was talking to everybody before we even closed. And I knew what to look for at that point. I knew what the pain points were for employees. So it was much easier to understand how we needed to communicate, when we needed to communicate, and how to partner with the existing ownership or outgoing ownership, because sometimes they were staying on, sometimes they wouldn't. But it's so hard because it's emotional. People are scared, they're frustrated, they don't know what's going to happen. And then you get sometimes people who are jaded or they've done it a bunch of times and they're like, don't worry about it. But to them, it's their life. You got to empathy for people because for them, it's a once in a career thing event.